Well, hello everyone. I just got back from Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and the eighth and final installment in the Mission Impossible film franchise, which not only sees the return of stars Tom Cruise, Ving Rhames, and Simon Pegg, and many others, but also bringing back everyone on from whom they can for the previous installments to say goodbye to not only the cliffhanger from the last movie, which takes place chronologically 2 months after the events of, but also nearly 30 years of storytelling. Been waiting to see this for about a year, especially since it would have been out last year were not for the strikes. So, let's begin. So, as I stated, picking up where the previous movie's events left off, the entity is still set to wreak havoc across the world, not only messing with people's perception of reality, but also threatening to launch a nuclear strike that would wipe out all humanity within 3 days' time. Thus, it falls Ethan Hunt, played one last time by Tom Cruise, to stop it. And let me tell you, they definitely pulled out the stops for this one. And I wasn't too put off by how expensive the last movie was, given how they're technically sharing the budget with this one. They're filmed, principally at roughly the same time, my understanding. And even all this time, even if even the calendar says now old enough to be my dad, he's barely aged a day in terms of physicality, quality, and ability. Not many people who would actually willingly be wanting to who do stuff on an aircraft carrier and a submarine, that kind of pressure. As I've established, as the lead here is not most people, say what you will about his personal life, I certainly have in years past. I definitely understand at least why he keeps getting work. When the amount of films that Cruise made can be counted on less than 10 fingers, and ones that have not banked $100 million domestically, hey, that's definitely a sign about being uniquely able to adapt to a changing cinematic landscape. As with his franchise and genre, it's definitely watching all these movies over the course of the last month or so has been an interesting case in franchise evolution, where we've gone from like a Web 1.0 layout where they had to take some creative license, but now we've reached a stage where they predict a scenario that could actually potentially happen. But and with that, even though it's easily like the darkest installment of the franchise, it's really saying something given the how Cerebus syndrome is set in ever since McQuarrie took the helm. It still maintains like an optimistic undercurrent and hopeful message. I won't say how, but there's actually a lot more people who make it out alive than you might think, based on circumstances. I'm glad for that. Some of these people actually deserve a happy ending. And as for what lies ahead on the big screen, I cannot say for certain. I can say that if it is true what they're saying about rebooting the TV show for Paramount Plus, I'm much open to the idea here. And I do not know what impact, if any current affairs will have on the Skydance merger, but as they stated, when the ink was still relatively wet on the deal, they definitely say this franchise alongside like Star Trek Mission Impossible and Star Trek and Transformers as key assets in portfolio, which implies the CIP is valuable. And they brought back a lot of the same crew they did in the last movie, especially the same cinematographer and editor, and you definitely see that work come together, like how the editing definitely does a great job at maintaining tension and pacing. Like, even though it may run about 2 hours and 50 minutes, it does not feel that way. I may have had to hit the head a couple times, but it definitely is one that held my attention throughout the duration, and definitely a is been quite a ride. Like how seeing like the first two movies in 2000, I mean, was it on TV, and seeing its subsequent one as it came out. I mean, so I quite literally grew up with this franchise, and so no matter what happened, I was always going to be seeing this. I know that both this and the live version of Lilo and Stitch coming generating a lot of discourse this weekend, so I decided to get this one out of the way first. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Of course, a Mission Impossible film is nothing without having compelling action scenes, and this is no exception. And I mean, and even like the opening escape from London definitely helps set the tone for the grand finale rather well. And even managed to play with the usual latex masking as well. That's been a series trademark. And like how I'm not gonna have any major spoilers, but it both bookends things in unique ways. And even though they initially set up up Donlan from the first movie, seemed like an antagonist, especially after finding out that Ethan seems to help breaking the vault in Langley and after poisoning his coffee. He it goes in directions you might not expect. I won't be saying how, which will give an idea of how much it threw me for a loop. I mean, and same deal like this. It is indeed the same knife that he left behind in the vault that day in '96. And again, it's important in the finale. I won't say how, but you'll definitely know when you see it. And also, can now indeed verify that's one question, and that was probably asked by a lot of the producers actually in the shooting script. You gave him an aircraft carrier? With that in mind, behind the actual extraction from the sunken submarine from the beginning of the previous film was quite effective, as was the way they layered all the events that brought them here. Like, they not only followed up on plot points that were set up in Dead Reckoning, which I rewatched, it's fairly close before I left for this one, all the way back from the original one in 1996, and definitely even plays with things I already talked about in my review of the reviews of the franchise, where I may even think about doing another on spoiler reviews, depending on what happens. But it definitely glad how it paid things off, like how they weren't lying when they said everything has built to this, and also they find ways of implementing in elements from not only previous installments but also whole new ones in unique and interesting ways. I mean, like how he interfaces with the entity is kind of like a 21st century take on the shroud, how that he put on when he met Maxine, in Max for short, and you thought the A400 had sequenced 5,000 feet in Rogue Nation was cool. Well, it was, but it's really got nothing on chasing after the last piece of the puzzle they need at 8,000 feet in a couple single engine planes. I mean, and here I am just hoping, and that's my flight actually lands safely. Much like its contemporary Harry and 007 franchise, it does not just mark the end of the storyline, but also in many respects like the end of an era. I mean, where even though there have been many franchises that have come and gone over the years, this is another constant I've had in my life. And even as someone who's never seen in the TV show, I can definitely say with confidence that this is not only one of my favorite films of the year so far, but actually has a potential contender for joining my all-time favorites list. I mean, The Dark Knight's still on top, but this is a very close second. I will definitely say that much. I mean, it definitely took its audience seriously and even got a standing ovation as the credits started rolling, and no worries, after the credits, I mean, we can go on home after that. And just so I'm not gonna be totally leaving you with nothing, I'm gonna do with things coming attractions too. So my final rating is an impossibly good 4 out of 4, 5 out of 5, and here's what's next on the list. Okay, so also out this weekend, the live action Lilo and Stitch version. I mean, and I'm doing my best to keep an open mind with that one, even with the discourse around that one. It's, again, that they haven't heard with any other live action version, including the next one I'm going to be talking about. I mean, let's just say between this and Stitch, this weekend to me is going to be like another Barbenheimer kind of one where I have one that targets an older section of the audience, and another which is a bit more family friendly, but also presents only a few new ideas, and even ones I have seen before in unique and interesting ways. I decided to get this one out of the way first. June 13th, How to Train Your Dragon live action. And I'm not sure how to feel about this one, given how I still think the original trilogy is quite impressive. They still show this movie fairly frequently on Nick every so often. Then, like I state whenever it happens with their competitors, the main thing I want out of this reversion is for it to be good. That's all. Well, I mean, it looks relatively close to the previous movie. They even brought back Gerard Butler to reprise his role as Hiccup's father, Stewick. Heck, I mean, I don't know whether they're going to stay close to the original movie or just change it up a bit. But I think it's definitely knowing what to keep and what to change. Like I said before, I can wait for that one to come to Peacock. I mean, my hands are definitely tied between Ballerina, John Wick coming out the week before, and Pixar's Elio coming out the week after. Might be seeing my nephew, who in the metro area might not. And I'd like to talk about one of the Friday the 13th films I haven't yet. And as for what's happened in DC, I think not. Okay, July 11th, Superman. Still my most anticipated film of the summer. Yes, I definitely think that other ones like Jurassic World, Rebirth look fun as well. I mean, but this definitely could be right up my alley. I've been meaning to talk about the second one for a while now. This preview, I'm already liking what they're doing, not just in terms with supporting heroes such as the guy on the Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, but also how they're really remixing a lot of elements of the comics and even like the classic films of the 70s and 80s from a new generation, and where trying to navigate what World Daily Planet has to inform the public in a time of confusion and distrust. I also really enjoy how they're power scaling Clark as well. I mean, even though some people have been debating this, I actually kind of like the idea of pitting him against an enemy of similar or greater strength. I mean, and as I tend to do just to test him, it's tricky, but not impossible to do. I'll say that much. And also same deal like Lex Luthor, othering Soup as well. I mean, how since it's also consistent with how he's portrayed a lot of how I tend to portray him with other comics adaptations I'm familiar with, where he has money, wants power, sees others standing in his way of that power, especially Superman. And as for being jealous of the attention he's getting, well, make your own assumptions. Also looks promising. Fantastic Four First Steps, July 25th. I mean, even the previous attempts of how to put Marvel's family on the big screen, including in the unreleased one, which I'll be talking about before this one comes out, this looks like they might finally have cracked the code, like they actually put up similarities they have to the Incredibles duology, like I mentioned before, and also be willing to embrace the more out there aspects of the source material from like the Golden Silver Age storylines, even just seeing elements like Ben Grimm's design, complete with like the comic I got unibrow, how and even like the device of Herbie the robots, they found a way to make that character work. And on top of the Juno Silver Surfer variants, and Galactus. I'm actually kind of interested in seeing what might happen if they include other elements, like say like the Mole People, including like the most well-known one, Harvey Elder. I mean, I think that's just kind of absurdity I could use right now. I mean, like I said before, and I'll say again, it's difficult, but by no means impossible to tell a serious story, which also happens to star an invisible woman and someone who can stretch his limbs to bizarre proportions. That'll be all for now. See you all again soon. Take care, everyone.